I watched a lot of documentaries and what have you about Natasha Kampusch again today. And from what little she'd said, I'd thought, my God, she must have had her first period while she was imprisoned. And she had already said, takes one to know one. Not in the captor sense, that her captor was obsessively clean. And inasmuch as he'd seen fit to kidnap a 10-year-old, rather than attempt to have a relationship with a woman, I thought he probably would be repulsed by menstruation. And in that situation, with that person, she would have had her first period. All of that had already crossed my mind. And then I saw a film which was presumably, I don't know how accurate it was, in which that was actually made fairly explicit, that precisely that had happened. I am uploading a video right now, which won't make sense to anyone but me, as ever probably. Re how much I identify with all of these captives. Some prisons are prisons of the mind. And I'd been in prison with my parents from whenever I entered their lives, be that birth or fall or whatever, right through to 1970 when I got the OCD, self-harm and all that. I'd already been a prisoner my whole life that I could remember. And it felt like that as well. And you could say a lot of children probably feel like that. When I grow up and get in hell out of here. That thought never, ever occurred to me. I think it would be fair to say that by the time I was 10, I knew I couldn't escape them. Alive, that is. I keep coming back to the arsenic poisoning and the trouble my father took to tell me that it had been arsenic poisoning, and the fact that no one else but me had it. He tried to convince me that other people on the farm we'd been staying at before I got it had also succumbed to it, but the daughter of these people was my pen friend, and they had not had any such thing. Ulrika Sandy, a Swedish girl. I think that holiday, I loved animals. Genuinely as a child. I couldn't call it love now, I would call it caring now. I loved Flossie very dearly, and I'm sorry to say in a lesser way, I loved Annie. Should be the other way around, shouldn't it, that you love the pups you've had, the dog you've had since puppyhood more than the rescue dog, but Flossie was my soulmate, and she deterred triggers to my PTSD. She approached nice people, easy people, calm people who became our friends, whereas Danny is attracted to all the people I can't stand and who trigger me the most. And the more I call him back, the more he goes to them, as happened this evening in point of fact. It is just cut out yet one more place. It is one more place we can't go. That is the whole of Lampeter. And of course, talking about the dogs, I've lost my train of thought. Flossie was the best thing in my life, and I can't say otherwise. She was better than any person I've ever had in my life. Any person. Any person. and Danny were like chalk and cheese. What he likes, I hate. What I hate, he likes. When I'm asleep, he wakes me. When I'm in pain, he does know. Oh, yes, he does know. And if, for example, I've broken something in my foot, he will jump on it. Why I resist rehoming him, Christ only knows. Or perhaps the other side, Satan. If there's a dog that needs rehoming, it's that dog. When he's not bad for my COPD, he's bad for my PTSD. When he's not bad for either of them, he's bad for my back. And this has been going on since I got him 2 years and 3 months ago, and I've gone completely off topic into this evening and the horrors, the absolute horrors of being out with him this evening. Which wouldn't have been so had I not had PTSD, and I would not have had PTSD had it not been for my parents. I don't know why this has come about. Half of me loves that dog and the other half does not. The whole of me loves Flossie. With all my heart and soul. I used to call her my sweetest heart, and I meant it. I used to think I won't be able to live when she dies, and in point of fact I haven't. She's been dead 3 years on Friday, and I haven't lived since she died. Sorry to say that little dog out there has spent his whole life almost, with a dying woman. No wonder he's weird, eh? Not that there's anything in him that you could actually call viciousness. He wouldn't bite anyone. Or any dog. Everything is safe from him except me. He reminds me of my father. A dog who reminds me of my father. That's not right, is it? My father was a highly intelligent man. I believe the average dog, well, Danny being half lab, half collier, an intelligent dog, probably has the intelligence of a 2-year-old child. So it's not fair to blame him for anything, especially as I brought him into my life, knowing the diagnoses that I had, except for the back, that is. Of course, at that time I'd had COPD for 2 years, and it was totally untreated then, as now, after 4 years and a quarter. Nobody has bothered to treat it. They didn't even bother to tell me that when I finally had a respiratory rehab appointment. And this is turning into a ramble, and I can't even remember what topic I started on. My parents. As ever. My father was a product of his age, his era, my brother said. Why couldn't I forgive him? Because he took my whole life, because he took my health, because he took my whole family, all of them. My cousin didn't even tell me she was getting married, whereas my brother went to her wedding. There we go again, you see. Perhaps it was an oversight on my cousin's part to invite my brother but not his sister. There was no deliberate malice in my not inviting my brother to my wedding. I just didn't even think about it. It was a very hurried registry office do that meant very little, really. It was kind of formalising our relationship so that he could move into my flat with me. I think that needed to be done back then. Supportive families. I wish I had never met any member of my family, or had any dealings of any kind with any member of my family, and yes, that does include the one who has been supposedly helping me this year. The one who led me to believe that she would help me go home to Southampton, and the minute that I found a place in Southampton, changed her mind. And it was perfect. Perfect for the COPD and perfect for my mind as well. My whole family has been turned against me since infancy for what my father did. I just don't understand how they could have thought a child who was perpetually ill, which I was. Well, I was ill whenever my father was around. How they could have thought I was such a bad kid. They should have had a look at my school reports. Not a bad word ever, all good. But then, bar the bullies, school was a safe-ish sort of place. Of course, the day I left was very shortly after getting the crab lice, which meant that my friends kept coming around for a while and being turned away, and not unnaturally they gave up. And I'm sure I've already said that between 1970 and 1986 I had no contact with any females. No contact. Except for my mother and my then only daughter. No female friends. No peer group. No one to talk to about female things. And even as a feminist, I would be the first to admit that females need other females to talk to. Perhaps especially as a feminist, it's not so surprising that I would admit that, is it? Because the men in my life were all the enemy. All of them. There weren't any exceptions. I thought there were for a while, but not really. Jeff, for example, the man I was engaged to. I thought he was a decent sort of bloke, if you don't count the fact that he drank like a fish and smoked like a chimney. He was at least hard-working, and he was looking after his 2 children after his divorce. He never treated me badly. It would have been a marriage of convenience. A father for my daughter, a mother for his children. The thing about Jeff is that he was connected to Hope de la Garenne at one end and Edward Heath at the other. Which means, to my way of thinking, that he must also have been connected to my father before I ever met him. I don't know how, but he must have. That kind of thing in my life is not coincidence. No way is that coincidence. Every man who was in my life as a significant other was put there by my father to control me by any means, whether it was beating me to a pulp, whether it was gang raping me, whether it was pimping me out. They were put there to control me by my father. And the first time that my husband beat the crap out of me and put me in hospital, my father patted him on the back the next morning. Him, not me. And I'm sure my husband would say, oh, well, she was very difficult. Not really. I spent all my time monitoring his every facial expression and mood, exactly the way I did with my mother. Not my father, my mother. I knew all about body language and facial expressions long before books were written on the subject. I was always asking Bob, "What are you thinking? How are you feeling?" Always watching him. He dragged me out of bed to beat the crap out of me. I must have annoyed him while I was sleeping. He waited behind the door to beat the crap out of me. I must have annoyed him while I was out. He never lifted a finger to work, except for the first 2 months of our marriage and the 6 months that he was sent to Schiphol Airport in 5 years of marriage. And never took any interest in either his stepdaughter or his natural daughter. Never, ever, ever. And I did say in one video the other night that I had placed my younger daughter in care when she was 3. I did not. I took her to him and his mother, thinking that she would be reasonably safe there due to his mother being there. She was a decent old soul. God knows how she produced my husband. God knows what went wrong there. And I've said it in a video, which I don't know if I've uploaded it or not, it's got that bad. He had her for 2 weeks. He smacked her because she wet herself in the garden. In the garden. Smacked, I can imagine the smack. Christ. And the next thing I knew, I was sat in a social worker's office, Sally Costick. I hope this isn't in the video I'm currently uploading. And he's admitting, in the presence of this woman and me, that he hit our 3-year-old because she wet herself in the garden. And he couldn't cope with her. But he didn't need to, because his mother was doing it all. What was it exactly that he couldn't cope with? Her presence? So I didn't put her in care when she was 3, he did. I did, however, try to get her out of harm's way when she was 3, as I did with my older daughter. And 3 definitely was a kind of a got to get him out of here feeling. I don't even remember what topic I started on.